Welcome to the Art of Microscopy. My name is Dr. Monica Oli, and I will share with you today one of my passions, which is microscopy. We will learn about the different parts of the microscope, so you can actually use it yourself. One of the most important part of using the microscope is actually the colouring process at the beginning, which is a little bit of a lost art for most microscopists. In the background, you see some of the paramecium swimming around. They're single-celled animals and some of my favorite animals. If we increase the magnification, we can see them having a great time eating bacteria. Again, microscopy is something really amazing. A drop of water contains thousands of different animals, and it's almost like stargazing. You can see a number of different organisms. You don't know what they are, but it's a fascinating world under the microscope. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Alright, let's get going with our microscopy lesson today. Make sure you find a comfortable chair because you may be sitting there for a while. Once you get hooked, you can sit on a microscope for hours. Let's first turn it on. On the right hand side, you find the on button. Make sure the light is on. If it is not on, make sure it's definitely plugged in. The dial underneath the on-off button, you can increase and decrease the light intensity, and you can see turning it back increases the light intensity, turning it to the front reduces the light intensity. You want to make sure that your eyepieces are set for your eye distance. So you can change, every person has different distance between their eyes, so you can change and adjust the eyepieces to make sure they fit the distance to your eyes. Always use two eyes to use the microscope. It's a binocular, which means for your two eyes. On this side of the microscope, we also have the stage knobs. These two buttons can move the stage, where your slide is on, to the front and back, and to the left and right. So your hand should always be on the stage knob because you'll always be looking around on a slide to find the best specimen. On this side as well, you have a fine focus, and you don't have a core focus, so you leave the other button in without touching it. You have, again, on the top part of your microscope, you have one important switch, and that's to activate the camera. If the button is turned in, the camera will not see light. If the beam splitter is pulled out, you can see your image in the eyepiece and through the camera. So I would usually always just leave it pulled out. Alright, so we're almost ready to use the microscope. The key part, what we learn next, is the colouring process. Kohler was a German scientist who worked for Zeiss, one of the biggest microscopy companies, and he figured out how to align the light beam so that it's most focused and it has the best contrast. To do this, we have to put in a slide. So I just take one of our calibration slides, adjust it put it safely into the slide holder, and find one of these images. On the other side of the microscope, you can see the core and fine focus. So the larger button is the core focus, where you go up and down faster, and then you have the fine focus to adjust the image to make it really crisp. This button here is the condenser stage up and down button. This is really important because that's how you color. If your condenser lens is too far down, then your image will not be in focus. But we'll talk about this in a little bit. Down here at the bottom is your field lens, and again that has to be closed and then later opened during the coloring process. The last part what we talk about is our lenses. You can see that each of the lenses has a number on it. This is the magnification of the lens. You also have a 10-fold magnification in your eyepiece. So if you can see on this yellow lens, it is a 10x magnification. The eyepiece also is 10x, so the total magnification using this lens is 100x. On this microscope we have a 4, 10, 40 and 100x lens. So the maximum magnification for this microscope is 1,000-fold. You can also see that the 100x lens says oil on it, and we will be using oil immersion microscopy at the end of this video. So you can rotate the different lenses smoothly on the nose piece, and you usually start with a low magnification with 4 or 10x to begin examining your specimen. Again, this is a slide holder where you can safely secure your slides and move the stage so you can see the best specimen under the microscope. Okay, now we can look at it from the other side again and learn the coloring process. So we will put a specimen in here, and the first part is you focus onto the specimen in the microscope. So we can see the live feed of what I can see through the microscope, which really helps you to understand what the coloring process is like. So this is a calibration slide, and it just shows a round circle. The first part is you want to focus it. You can barely see anything. As you're moving the coarse focus, it becomes into focus, and then eventually it is perfectly in focus. So the first part of coloring, put in a slide and then focus on it. The second part is you close your field diaphragm, and you can see that you only see like a black circle. The point is that you don't want to see a black circle, but you want to see a black hexagon. So now you have to go to your condenser lens up and down button and go all the way to the point where it's the most focused. And it also changes light color. You see now it's green. If I go down a little bit, it's more orange. So right on the cutting point where it changes the color, it's the most focused. And you can see an octagon inside the microscope very clearly. And this is the perfect setting. This is the perfect setting for the coloring process. So that's what you should see in the microscope, a crisp outline of your field diaphragm. The second part of the coloring process is you want to make sure that your light beam is right in the middle of your image. So sometimes it happens that your light is not in the center. So you have to use the two buttons on the side underneath your stage and move your circle up into the middle of your field of view. So what you can see, it should be right in the middle. Again, it should be focused on your specimen. You should close the field diaphragm. You need to make sure your condenser is at the right height where you can see the octagon, and it has to be in the middle. So once you have all this set up, you can increase your field diaphragm and you can start the art of microscopy. So now the microscope is ready for looking at specimens. Today I brought a few specimens for you. We won't make a lot ourselves. And we start off with a couple of fungi. And fungi are everywhere. And you can see, let's get some more light here, increase our field of view, and we can actually start the microscopy process. In this image, you can clearly see some hyphae, but it doesn't really look like much at all. So we are at the 4x magnification for fungal hyphae, and we're looking for spores. So now we are rotating our magnification using a different lens, going to the 10x magnification. So now we have a total of 100x. When you switch from lens to lens, you usually don't have to adjust much of the contrast, because when you switch from lens to lens, it's parfocal. It means it has the same focus regardless of what lens you use. And you can see with the higher magnification, you see more of the hyphae. And if you look around the slide, you can start looking and identifying the different structures. Again, with 10x, you don't see much yet at all. Let's try the 40x magnification on our fungal spores. And once we go to the 40x, again, we don't have to adjust much for the focus because it is parfocal. And now you can actually see spores. Do you see the round little dots and the broom-like looking thing? And these are the spores of penicillium and the structures. So one problem with fungi is that they have so many spores. When you have black mold in your house, you can breathe them in and they can make you very sick. And you can clearly see on our microscope that there are millions and millions of spores. Let's go to another one. And again, different fungi have different structures, and experts in the field can recognize the different fungi on their structure. Alright, let's go to another specimen. Another common object what you can find in pond water and in many other puddles, water samples, is diatoms. And diatoms are recognized on their very symmetric structure. They come in squares, ovals, diamonds, chains, and often as stars. So this slide is just a prepared mixture of different diatoms which are very often encountered in nature. Currently I'm using the 10x magnification. And you see a little bit more detail with the 40x magnification. Again, they're single-celled organisms. One thing what you want to make sure with your microscope, you want to make sure that your contrast is perfect. So underneath the stage you have the diaphragm lens, and you can, if you dial it to the left, you increase your light. If you dial it to the right, you decrease your light, increase the focus. You can see that your image changes quite a lot by using that method. So again, you always want to have the best possible image when you do your microscopy. Alright, let's look at one more slide. I'll show you the condenser again. So this is a blood sample. And we're looking to see if this person is infected with malaria. Again, look underneath the stage. Underneath the stage you have the condenser lens. And you can increase or decrease the contrast. This is very important for you to get a good image. Let's go to the next magnification, because from the red blood cells we don't see much yet. Now we can recognize individual blood cells, and strangely enough, inside some of these red blood cells are little dots. Right in the middle, you can see that this patient is infected with Plasmodium. So these patients have actually malaria. You can see that many of the red blood cells contain Plasmodium parasites inside the red blood cells. Right, the last part what I want to teach you today is I want to show you how to use oil immersion microscopy. And to use oil immersion, you need to use immersion oil, and it's only for the 100x lens. Make sure you never get oil onto any of the other lenses. The reason why we use oil immersion is because so that the light does not scatter, and because the 100x lens has so much less light coming through, it makes it a much better image. So what we're looking right now is a bacterial stain. We first insert the slide. We need to make sure it's in focus on the low magnification. And once it's in focus, we can use oil, put it on the slide without contaminating any of the other lenses. And slide it directly into the 100x lens. Again, make sure you never get oil on any of the other lenses. And then we focus, we increase our light, and we see if we can focus on our specimen. Here we go. So what this slide is a capsule stain. You can see the blue bacteria inside in a white area around them. The white area around them indicates a capsule that protects many bacteria from our macrophages, so they're more resistant and more difficult to clear for as an infection. Again, with the oil immersion, we just slid it into the oil. In the beginning it will be a little bit difficult for you to use the oil immersion, and one trick is to always move the fine focus and the stage knob at the same time, so you know when you come into focus your image in the microscope moves. It takes a little while to become good at it. To change the slide from the oil immersion, you can just remove the slide, use another slide, add a little bit of oil to it on your specimen, and slide it right back into your clip. This slide is a clinical specimen of anthrax. So you can see there's gram-positive rods in the specimen of a tissue cross-section. And again, we are viewing this with a 1000x magnification. Alright, let's look at one more live specimen and then review the parts of the microscope. When you're done with your 100x lens, make sure you always wipe off the oil of the lens so it doesn't crust on the lens and damage it. So we have one more specimen, and this is a paramecium. Paramecium are small unicellular animals, critters. So what we often do, we look at live specimens. It's much more fun than looking at prepared slides. But that takes a little bit more sophistication in terms of knowing how to use the microscope. When you open your diaphragm condenser lens and you have too much light, you won't see anything. You can maybe see a little outline, but you can't really see anything. So make sure you adjust your contrast by closing or dialing the condenser light to the right. Now you have a pretty good image of these paramecium. They're single-celled animals, and you can clearly see interior structures like the nucleus, undulating, or the cilia on the outside, how they move, and the contractile vacuoles. On this one you can also see the nucleus in the middle. So there are many different specimens what you can look at. Pond water, puddles, your teeth, your plaque. There's so many things, and every time you look at anything under the microscope, you will find a wealth of different life forms which you would have never imagined to be there. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and make sure you remember all the different steps of using a microscope. Let's briefly review the parts one more time. Alright, so to start off, we turn on the light and we adjust our light intensity. We have our stage knob where we move the stage up and down and left and right. We have our different lenses. We start usually magnifying with the low magnification 4x or 10x, and then we can rotate the nose piece all the way to the 40 and 100x lens. Make sure that your eye pieces, the adjustment is proper so you can have a good image. You can adjust the interpupillar distance by holding both eyepieces and moving them sideways. Make sure that your condenser is at the right stage by collaring. Again, the collaring process is you add a slide, you focus on something on the slide, you close the field diaphragm, at the bottom, and then you adjust the condenser height to make sure you see the octagon inside and it's right in the middle, in the center. Then you increase or you open up your field diaphragm and you're ready to do microscopy. To use the camera, you get separate instructions on how to use it. Make sure when you use the camera, you open the light path to the camera so you can actually see it. If the button is turned in, you won't see anything. So leave the button out so you can actually look at it on your iPads, phones, computers, and everything else. Make sure you take lots of pictures and videos so you can share these memories with your friends and family. Enjoy microscopy! Alright, to finish up this lesson on microscopy, make sure you clean up. Your microscopes are really valuable. This one is about $2,000. Other ones are up to $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. Make sure to take care of the equipment. Couple of simple steps. Make sure you clean off the 100x lens if you used oil. Again, don't get any oil ever on any of the other lenses. If there's any oil on your stage, just wipe over with a Kim wipe and clean it off. Change your magnification to the lowest magnification and then roll down the stage. Unplug the camera and bring the plug into the bin where it belongs. For the cord of the microscope, roll it up on the cord clip on the back of the microscope. Cover it up and make sure you remember where the handle is. Now you can safely hold it with 2 hands and carry it into the cupboard. Thank you and have a great time using the microscope.